always remember I have really gargantuan stage fright. So the title is excellent, but I think I'll get through this one as well. We got this in as part of the description, and you know, some of it sounds a bit buzzwordy, but what we'll actually go through here is a bunch of the things I spent my time on. We built some stuff, we had some companies. I've been lucky enough to be in a startup that was really successful, which kind of gives a different angle to the whole startup thing than I think many others have gotten. It also made me addicted, so I've never really had a real job. You know, after being at work for 15 years without a proper job, it's kind of okay. We'll look at some of the hardware, or well, we won't actually look at it. We'll talk about some hardware and some APIs that are in all Android devices today. Some tech tools and frameworks that also help people build apps. Because of course I will do a shameless self-plug at the end. If you manage to sidetrack me with questions, that's good. I'm really random, so you can get anything out of me. And yeah, I think the key thing is, to my story, is what happens when you're too stupid to know that what you're trying to do is difficult. And yes, this is me. As you can see from the classes, I'm a 3D specialist, and been so for many years. Started out in the demo scene, as many other graphics developers, also one of the people who went into gaming. I stumbled into GPU development by chance, or actually I was bragging at a party about demo coding stuff I'd done, and 2 weeks later I was headhunted to code GL drivers. I didn't really know C at the time, which was what we used to develop, but you know, we learn as you go. We did some other stuff, into marketing for a while. I'm not a really good marketing guy, other than the fact that I'm really techy, I talk a lot, and I'm honest in that way that actually makes sense, which isn't to say, you know, that doesn't mean I'm a really good liar, it's just, you know, balancing it. And in the end, I realized traveling the world, having platinum cards in KLM and earning them in 5 months isn't really that cool, and went back to doing technology. Yeah, also one thing that helps me here, I'm more of a low-level 3D guy. So every time someone talks about fragments here, you know, to me that's something that goes through a GPU pipeline and gets shaded and comes out as pixels in the end. Yeah, and a lot of the stuff I'm going to say is going to sound really positive because, you know, I have mostly positive memories from this. But of course, we ran into a lot of shit. We made bad decisions at times, and I'm super happy if anyone wants to ask questions about that. So, once upon a time in Trondheim, Trondheim is in Norway, for those who didn't know, we actually had an office on the top right by the bridge up there. The company I'm going to talk a bit about, we stayed there for a bit too long. When we got the office, we were 8 guys. When we moved out of there, we were 35 and kind of cramped. But it all started with, well, Phalanx Microsystems. The company was originally founded in 2001. I was not one of the founders. I'll get back to that. But prior to that, it was basically for university students who had a really good idea. And they convinced their lecturers, their professors, to back them up from 97 and forwards until they graduated in 2001. So they started designing a GPU in any project they could get at university. You know, anything you have to deliver, they tweaked it so that, you know, it's just another component in the whole GPU design. So okay, you take this subject, you get to build this thing. Okay, yeah, we can make that fit into our whole big GPU plan. The funny thing was that they didn't want to build mobile GPUs because, you know, in 97, why would you have mobile GPUs? Plenty of people didn't have any sort of mobiles. We had like more screens. So they decided to build a 256-bit fully programmable desktop GPU. This was at the same time, I think, NVIDIA had GeForce 3. It wasn't very programmable. I think it maybe they hit 128-bit buses and so on at that this was kind of crazy, but great ideas, they believed in the tech. They just needed $100 million at that time. I think if you move that forward, it's about $130 million now. You hear about people getting hands into their hands with that kind of money, but maybe not for university students. And this was when the dot-com bubble burst. I think actually that they've been on Norwegian national TV talking about their project, getting some attention, talking about looking for funding, and this was around 9/11 as well. And the bubble burst, there wasn't really much stuff. So this went short. No, I don't think so, because 5 years after that, Phalanx was actually acquired by ARM, who make the CPUs in all the phones today. Anything other that is embedded, you might have some NIPs, you might have a tiny bit of RISC, some old stuff around, but ARM has all of it. The GPU division, we were 6 guys when I joined. We were 25 when ARM acquired us. The division itself now is around 250. It's 130 guys in Norway, 20-30 in Lund, actually. There's a company called Logic Hard there doing video acceleration, who were acquired a couple of years after us. Several of those got into graphics drivers. There's a division in Shanghai. Shanghai. And there's, of course, a large batch of people in Cambridge also working on the same thing. Much more important is, of course, that the Mali GPUs that we built are shipped in hundreds of millions of devices and continue to do so. Actually now even more than before, seeing as a lot like the NTK chips that are in a lot of the Alcatel phones out there, also Spectrum chips and so on are going even to a lot of the Android One project phones as well. It's going to live on for a very long time, which pleases me, because one of the last things I did in product marketing was they had all this fun stuff that they calculate revenues from 5 years into the future. And I was young and positive, so I calculated some really nice numbers, and all my managers told me that, yeah, this is never going to happen, but yeah, you're leaving anyway, we'll let you play around with these numbers, we'll just correct them afterwards. Actually, the sales for the GPUs I looked after at that point have now surpassed that, and are actually shipping more now than 2 years ago. But I am a I told you so kind of guy. Yeah, exactly. But how did we get from the 2001 $100 million to this? So yeah, as I wrote this earlier today, I realized that a lot of things I put in there sounds like motivational posters. So I'll try to keep it down to earth. So we switched to mobile. And in 2001, that was actually not that stupid. You had a lot of interest and R&D for mobile graphics around 2001. For instance, in Finland, you have BitBoys, who later went on to become ATI, who later went on to be acquired by Qualcomm, who are now really big teams. Hybrid in Finland was a software company, excellent software guys. They did the software OpenGL implementation for phones, which were also licensed, I think, to Ericsson. They were acquired by NVIDIA in 2006. There were tons of startups elsewhere, and we all kind of expected that mobile graphics was going to take off in 2004, and it would be a huge amount of hardware accelerated games. And of course, we needed this, otherwise we wouldn't know where we did. As most of you probably know, the iPhone didn't arrive until quite some time after that. And 2004 was very exciting. The Nokia N-Gage was almost the things we aimed for, with the exception that it wasn't hardware accelerated. And games did ship on physical media, which actually was a pain to switch. Anyone who hasn't Googled site talking before should really do so, because it was a horrid phone. And flopped commercially. So for a while there, we kind of thought, okay, this might not work out, but we had nothing better to do. Well, we had some ideas on that. But we stuck to it, and it kind of worked out. The other clever trick, of course, was IP business model. Not sure how many of you software guys who know what that actually lies in that as a hardware vendor. Exactly. So it's excellent when you don't want to own a factory and you still want to build chips. So you design them. The actual chip design is kind of like writing software. You tend to do a bit more testing, but your deliverables are smaller. And of course, the GPU, you also have to ship drivers, so there's a large batch of software on top of it. But excellent choice if you can't raise $100 million, for instance. This is also a business model that ARM pioneered, which was a nice coincidence for us. So, simply done, small products, no own hardware manufacturing, don't need all that money. Sounds good. But you still need to build it and sell it, of course. At this point, the 4 founders were just that. 4 guys straight out of university. They had some really good hardware design skills, good hardware implementation skills. 2 of them knew how to write some code. And they kind of started, okay, what do you do when you need to hire people? And you need to hire these guys to do something that no one else in your country has ever done before. So where do you find this competence? And also we have no money whatsoever, so what do? You build a kind of silly driver team. The thing on the left is me around 2004. It's a regular day in the office, it's not a party. There's some media stuff on the laptop, it's very relevant. The guy on the right was the first one I hired. This was the entire software driver team for a year and a half. This guy, his previous job was actually at 7-Eleven, which made it even worse, better in many ways. I knew him a bit. I knew he was a very good low-level programmer, really good with software graphics and so on. He worked the night shift at 7-Eleven, so of course anything was up for him. I knew he had actually just been held at gunpoint. And this in Oslo in the early 2000s is not like regular. So we got him to move to Trondheim. Me on my side, like I mentioned, I've been bragging at some party about how good I was at coding graphics. The fact that this was an Amiga assembler code didn't really matter. The fact that I didn't really know C, which was what we needed, also didn't matter because we always learn. And at that point I was the lead software guy, so no one could even arrest me for it either. Then the founders, I guess they decided beggars can't be choosers, and we went on with it. This guy later went on to have a very successful career in the oil industry. He has been doing seismic rendering for many years. So effectively doing 3D rendering of all the measurements that the oil companies do to find oil, work out how they put down the pipes and so on. He actually left that and joined our most recent company. A lot of this is little random tidbits. But one of the cool things when you make new hardware is that the API you say you support doesn't really exist yet. So 2001, 2002, tons of people say, yeah, we're doing this new mobile OpenGL thing. Whatever it is, we're doing hardware, we're doing software for it. And that's kind of okay because we didn't really know who the customers were either. But everyone was doing it, and so you go to the standardization organizations. It's still Kronos, so the same guys who actually took over ARM, took over running the traditional old OpenGL, started out with this. It's kind of different though. I think back then standards development was, and it still is, but it was really a dirty business. There were designed by committee can be frustrating. But when that committee is only your competitors and everyone already has the hardware design and they just want to make sure that their features are in spec, yours possibly hopefully not, and so on, it got dirty. Also, it was a new business. There was no money in it. So the hotels we had the meetings in were also really filthy. But the one nice thing there, and what I meant by dating these kind of organizations, is that you had to join this because that's where the customers were. The guys who had some interest in, these APIs, these accelerators actually existing, were also in there. So, let's say you're a company of 6 guys from Norway. How do you get hold of that guy from Nokia? How do you get hold of that guy from Ericsson or whatever? Of course, you join the organization. Then you go end up in the same meetings with them. Then you drink beer with them. If we're lucky, we can even buy them one. Yeah, you have the budget that day. And that's just how it was done. Kind of more stable now. Back then, it was only hardware vendors. I mean, you had OEMs who built devices, you had the guys who built the chips, you had us who designed the graphics, and that was it. Nowadays, you actually have people who write software on top of it as well, which helps. At the point when Epic and some of the other gaming companies joined Kronos, it made discussions a whole lot easier because you actually had people who, like apps developers, they're going to use this for something, so they have a bit more clue about what they want after some information. Someone mentioned yesterday that today is the best time to do Android development, and I'd say it's probably the best time to do any kind of apps development. This is an old slide. It's not confidential any longer. From around 2005, describing what we sold or produced at that point in time. Our graphics core is at the bottom. It's still so early that you didn't write ARM CPU on it, because it could still be a MIPS, it could still be an x86 design. You didn't know where the next use case was for your GPU IP. Actually, once we much later got proper chips, and I was at that point working for ARM, I was traveling around with a MIPS powered device presenting for ARM, because it was the first chip we got with our graphics in it. So I got special approval from headquarters to drag their competitor CPU around. But yeah, the operating systems we had to support, with the exception of Linux, obviously, are kind of common. And that's good on us. Symbian was fascinating. One that isn't listed here, but also caused some interesting challenges, and that some of you may know, was something called OSE. Anyone ever dealt with it? No. It's an old Ericsson real-time operating system. So kind of low-level, kind of things you use in yesteryear's phones. All fun and games until maybe you try to sell them a GPU, and they say, yeah, this looks cool, with how fast can you deliver the drivers for our custom operating system. An operating system that also demands you don't do any kind of dynamic memory allocations, for instance. Who can think of that? But a lot of this went away, as well as JSRs and Java, which was fascinating. We had video acceleration for a while. The GPU wasn't really meant for it, but then again, there was a customer, someone had a requirement, and we worked out that actually we can reuse some surface area there to build something. And effectively, that's how it went all the time. This is interesting because it now says, there were animations in the old slide. I got them from my old boss or Skype brother the day before he went to that. So, on to, this is before we became ARM. At this point, we hired one more guy after Eric. The other, no, Eric was the 7th guy. One of the guys was hired at the same time as me. And we're off to sell our first GPU. This is in, I think, in 2003. And there's a tiny, well, they were quite big, but there's a mostly Israeli company building SoCs, so system on chips. They're looking for a graphics processor. They're mostly known for building really big camera circuits, set-top boxes, stuff like that. They also had a small mobile division that had gotten some decent deals. And they needed graphics. At this point in time, what you did when you were an SoC company, you checked the memory list of Kronos, you Googled a bit, and you called up everyone. We know for a fact that one of our competitors, one of the big guys back then, picked this customer up in a stretch limo at Heathrow Airport, took him to the finest restaurants and yada yada yada. Because that's what you do when you have new interesting customers. We were 7 guys in Norway. We kind of misled him, so he got off the Airport Express bus at the wrong place in January in Trondheim, because someone had said get off at the first bus stop. They should have said the first bus stop once you enter town. So there you have his poor Paris is standing there in the middle of nowhere. Snow is falling down, coming down, and he doesn't quite know. Our webpage at this point in time was a home-rendered logo. It wasn't the sexy one I showed earlier. It was something one of the engineers made. It was very pink, very 3D, and underneath was an email address and a phone number. So of course this guy thinks he's been scammed completely. But we got a hold of him, got him downtown, showed him the stuff, tons of meetings around this. They decided on us. They then again realized how this could be a really small company that we're buying hardware from, because some of these hardware tools are really expensive. So in the end, they actually had to get more licenses for the hardware development tools that they then could lend to us, otherwise their product would never be finished. Because we did manage to hire more guys, but we didn't have the money for any more licenses. In the end, things took forever. IP vendorship for hardware takes a lot of time. You design it, you sell it to some guy who makes a chip, he makes a chip, he sells it to someone who builds a phone. Takes a lot of time, usually not 4 years, but in this case it did. The result for us was 3 LG phones, which was really, really cool when they finally arrived. Not very good phones, but they were the first ones we had, and it was awesome. By that time, we were really close to being acquired as well, so we got a little bit more experience, but still great fun. And yes, so another skip. So how do you get remembered? I have a couple of different stories around this actually, but so we were never the smoothest operators around. I mean, we're Norwegian, kind of clumsy. We didn't always do very well in cultures where you have to take it with care, where what you say, what you do. But we're always honest, kind of direct, mostly good guys, and you could have quite a lot of fun. This one is specifically from a post-ARM acquisition meeting. We were 2 guys from Phalanx, me and our old CEO, and a bunch of sales guys from ARM visiting a really big customer, or potential customer at that point in time. Everything was going very well, deep tech meeting, all their techies, some of their product management involved, everyone really keen, and we're going to break for lunch. The British sales guys are very happy because they haven't usually had this good response from this very big customer before. And my old boss decides to put on Hitler reactions to OpenGL3 in one of these dubbed videos, which at that time OpenGL3 had just been, the spec had been released. People were furious because the ARB had promised them so much new things that in the end didn't show up. The Hitler video was kind of funny. The British sales guys didn't quite agree. I've never seen anyone so shocked in any meeting, and they're staring at me and at my boss. He was also too. We were all their colleagues at that time. They weren't quite convinced about the Norwegians yet. They understood there wasn't good tech, but they didn't always dare to bring us any customers. Luckily, all the potential customers in the room loved it. It was awesome, and they later came back with stuff like, those boring Brits, they never did this. It's so good to have you guys around. It's going to be so much more fun. And it's once again one of these, it's at least personality, and it's kind of direct, and as long as you're not nasty to anyone, it usually works out. because everyone is people. That's just the way it is. Tons of other stories around this. When we got the headline, Phalanx boys in Barcelona flinging pixels around like rock stars do bear models. It was also awesome. We may have paid the reporter a little bit. There were secret GPU meetings deep in the woods. One large OEM who said, okay, we want to know everything about every GPU out there. We'll call you to this meeting in a secret site. And there's not that many OEMs around forests, so there's a couple of Nordic ones. They invited one person, or allowed one person from each company. The other guy sent in the slickest, nicest, whatever. We sent in a guy who's very clever, not really shaven, kind of hungover, stumbling a bit, going like, oh yeah, you're not supposed to see this slide. Oh yeah, this crashed right now. But and again, the engineers who actually made the decision in this organization loved it. Because they said, everyone else lied to us. You showed us a proper demo of what you have today. And we can work with guys who do that, but not with the guys who lie to us. Speaking of, short story. If you ever sell IP hardware, there's one joke you'll always see. And you can probably guess it if I say that this represents one mobile GPU and this represents another mobile GPU. And people will go, how are you going to fit that in a phone? And it's funny the first 1,000 times, but it keeps coming back. This chip thing on the right was actually the first multi-core mobile GPU anyone ever built. So it's a pre-version of the Mali 400 that's still shipping in phones today. It's a Mali 200 that we hacked a bit. So this chip was done by our internally. I think actually, this was the motivational poster thing that I said I was going to remove anyway. It's facts, it sounds corny. However, this startup stuff is absolutely addictive. The photo in the middle here is from 2003 or something. There were two students that we used for a demo project. The guy on the right is now the CEO of a German Norwegian hardware company that builds really extreme multi-core server hardware. He ran off to do that. The guy on the left is now my boss. He used to work for me, but then we kind of realized he could expect really neat t-shirts, and he's hungrier, so that's what we were going with. So if I have 4 minutes left, we'll go with this. Because as I said, I got addicted to startups. I didn't get rich from any of this. When we were acquired, I think the payoff was effectively what I would have earned if I had a regular job for those years. But I got it all in one batch. And the bank still owes more of my flat than I do. It was nice, and it was really cool experiences. So you end up really enjoying it. So shameless self-plug for the company I'm currently at, where 1/3 of all the employees come out of this GPU stuff anyway. We're called Outracks. We're based in Oslo, Norway. 16 people right now. Haven't made a single buck yet. Well, actually we did. We used to do consulting. So lots of content development and so on. Then we realized, we want to build technology. Everyone codes except one of us. He does anything like video editing, music composition, and product design, and is brilliant at it. Our youngest employee is 15. He's actually part-time, obviously, he's still at school. But he's one of these guys who will do excellent anywhere. The stuff we do is build development tools, find Waldo, and we have a corporate milkshake program, which I actually switched on. So in the background there's milkshake, other than that there's bubbly. The corporate milkshake program is a thing, and it keeps you going for quite some time. And why am I at an Android conference? Because we do build dev tools. So we think we'll come up with some technology that's pretty clever. We have some really good tools for doing native cross-platform development. So it's not any of this JavaScript, HTML file in a wrapper thingy. We export native code at the end. If you build for Android, you actually get C++ for MDK builds. We spit out JavaScript and then GL for web. We do .NET bytecode if you want to export to Windows, for instance, stuff like that. We are some of those guys who think that designers should get access, if they want to create exactly the app they want, if they don't want to follow any design guidelines, why not let them? So everything we do is fully GPU accelerated. There's frameworks for layout engines, so you don't get into this, oh, I want to do regular layout and I get all the features I have in my native SDKs and so on. You already have them in there. You can fork them off and carry on using them as well. And the last thing is we want to make developers and designers best friends forever. So we do design tools as well. We have stuff where you can drag in PSD files without slicing and start building the apps right on that and export code at the end. Tons of demos. We have some kind of famous beta users. The guy on the right, that mouse, some of you might have heard about. There's some videos out there on some really, we can't say much about the project. There's some really cool live visualization software for concerts. It's based on what we do. And we are in beta. Nothing costs anything. We love it when people tell us what we've done wrong. That's why we are in beta. Our own guys have gotten used to some of the quirks, so they work around it. We need everyone else to tell us what they're missing. Yes, someone made music video with it as well. And I'll just finish off with one of the interesting. I'll switch this off. One of the interesting projects we have. And a lot of this is for regular app design as well, but we have people doing crazy stuff, as I mentioned. Apex VJ. Oh, demos on the outside later. Questions?
Questions, yes. Okay, we have